How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, Saturday mornings with Jim Valley, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, Sundays with Andrew Zarian. And it is Fun Friday here on the show. That's right. It's Friday. And we're going to have fun, damn it. So this is the plan. It's just me today, no Sempervive. And so it'll be me and you and whatever's on all of our minds. I got a lot of news to get into. I'll do the Dynamite report here today since we weren't here yesterday. And I want to hear from you. I've been doing this for After Dark, and I thought, why not do this for Observer Live as well? Have a topic, and then I want to hear from you. And so I was like, what should the topic be for today? Well, it's Fun Friday. And I always like asking this question to, like, famous wrestlers. And that is, when you were growing up, there was a wrestler that was your favorite, and nobody understood it but you. Maybe you were like a big fan of the Blacktop Bully, just as an example. Dino Bravo, something of that nature. So if you had an obscure, odd favorite wrestler that got you into wrestling, one day you turned on the TV and you saw Mike Jackson, who's a great wrestler, by the way, and we'll talk more about him a little bit later. But he, like, got you into this business, and people say, what's your favorite wrestler? You said Mike Jackson. We're like, what? Mike Jackson? The Ultimate Warrior's out there. So anyway, I want to know who it is. You can text me, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. Or you can send an email to f4wonline@gmail.com. That is f4wonline@gmail.com. I want to know the obscure wrestler that only you got that got you into watching professional wrestling. Then we'll talk about all the news. We got a lot of it to get into here today, and we'll open up the phone lines in the final segment of the show. Once again, text messages 425-780-7566. Email f4wonline@gmail.com. I'm F4W Online, Threads, Instagram, and Cameo, at Bryan Alvarez on X and Blue Sky. Back in a moment. Observer Live. See, we got a good start here. Lilio here says, favorite odd wrestler I had too as a young lad, he says, IRS, and the Mountie. But that's the extent of the email. So if you're going to send the email, let me know a little more. Like, why did you think these guys... Like, I understand the Mountie. When we went back and watched some of that 92, 93 WWF, this freaking Mountie, like when I was a kid, I didn't care about the Mountie, probably because he zapped Bret Hart with that taser. But anyway, looking back now, the Mountie was incredible. His music was incredible. He just played that character to the hilt. So I get the Mountie, but IRS, you're going to have to explain that one to me, brother. But that's how it's done, everybody. Who is your favorite odd wrestler growing up that no one else got, apparently, except you? SmackDown airs tonight, but I believe it's going to be taking place at any moment. Might be in about 50 minutes. I don't think it's head-to-head with us. But regardless, taking place in London, and we have 3 things announced for the show, to my knowledge. We have got Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk in a WrestleMania contract signing. How could that possibly go wrong? We have got LA Knight versus Braun Strowman for the U.S. title. And we have the Street Profits defending against Pretty Deadly. So I think it's pretty clear that we're going to get like a 5-way tag team scramble type match at WrestleMania. So I would think that, we'll have a run-in here or whatever with the Street Profits and Pretty Deadly. For LA Knight and Braun Strowman, I'd be surprised if LA Knight lost that title again. So we'll see where that leads. And all I can pray is that they got something planned for this Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk match. Because, as I talked about after watching SmackDown last week, the whole problem with that SmackDown main event angle was you had 3 guys who are all good talkers and all big stars. And they came out and they talked, and it was like nothing special. And then they got into a brawl, and it was nothing special. And then, like, the show went off the air, and as a fan, I was like, I don't care about this match. Who cares? It didn't feel like a big WrestleMania match between 3 of the biggest stars. It felt like, well, we got a Mania card. We got nothing to do with Roman, Seth, or Punk, so let's put them together in a 3-way. Now, it's easy to make this work, and we have several weeks left of television. And technically, they're probably going to appear on both shows, so, we got 5 or 6 shows left. But they've teased it already. And I think they need to go full bore into what is Paul Heyman going to do? Because in order to make this match feel meaningful, there's either got to be like a title shot on the line, because there ain't going to be a title on the line, or we need to be left wondering if we go to WrestleMania and or buy the pay-per-view, is CM Punk turning heel? Is Paul Heyman turning on Roman Reigns? Are we going to see a big reshuffling of the deck as a result of this match? That, I feel, is how you need to sell it. Because right now, it just feels like whatever. And as someone noted here, and they're absolutely correct, there's been at least 3 pull-apart brawls on every show that's not... And he wrote exasperation. I think he meant exaggeration. But but I can understand exasperation. Too many pull-apart brawls. I mean, we saw that brawl with Tiffany and Charlotte, and whatever you want to say about like their back and forth, the back and forth segment that they did, which was very reminiscent of MVP and the Hurt Syndicate and Big Bill and the Bad Apple. It was almost exactly the same, actually. Whatever you thought about that, I mean, they had a pretty good pull-apart brawl. And the problem is their pull-apart brawl was way better than the pull-apart brawl that Roman, Seth, and Punk had a week later. So, too many brawls. So that's SmackDown coming up here tonight. And then Collision is Saturday. We got Wheeler Yuta and Dax Harwood. Mercedes Moné will be in action. No opponent. Jay White versus Kevin Knight. Jamie Hayter is just back to do a job for Queen Aminata. And Top Flight will face the Learning Tree. And if the Learning Tree wins, then they're going to get a shot at the Hurt Syndicate. My recommendation, if I were the Learning Tree, is lose. Because this Hurt Syndicate thing ain't getting you over. It's not getting you over. So, as we mentioned on the Thursday Bryan and Vinny show, I believe it was in the Observer as well, it has been confirmed that the pay-per-view match was supposed to be the Hurt Syndicate versus Lance Archer and Brian Cage. But Brian Cage suffered a knee injury, and so he's out of action for who knows how long. And so they needed somebody to fill that spot, and they chose the Learning Tree, and MVP just made them look like absolute geeks. Just geeks on that show on Wednesday. So, I don't know, man. I mean, they should get a talking to, but they're not gonna. So, we'll see how the next couple of weeks go leading up to this pay-per-view. And by the way, we do have an AEW pay-per-view coming up. It is April 6th, so next weekend, actually. We've got Toni Storm versus Megan Bayne for the AEW Women's title, Moxley and Swerve for the AEW World title, Kenny Omega against Ricochet, and Cornball Mike Bailey, as this geek Ricochet refers to him. Death Riders will face Rated FTR, and Chris Jericho will defend the Ring of Honor title against Bandito. Mask versus title. So, there you go. Sports fan here says it's not a foregone conclusion at all that Jamie loses tomorrow. Well, sports fan 1414, if you'd like to bet on that, I'm not gonna, but she's gonna be losing tomorrow. Because I believe the only way that you can say that it is not a foregone conclusion that Jamie loses tomorrow is if you've never watched AEW. Because if you do watch AEW, this is how he books the women's division. It's how he books a lot of things, but the women's division in particular, it's like it's somebody's turn. And right now it's Queen Aminata's turn. And she's been slowly racking up some wins. And Jamie has been gone. And so Jamie is clearly being brought back to put her over. And then, Queen Aminata will probably get a championship match here at some point. And then away we go. What if Aminata loses, which furthers the Deeb story? Well, Aminata just lost to Julia. Well, that's right, they had that series. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Listen, maybe she'll win, who knows? But I think Queen Aminata's, I think she's winning that match. But anyway, we do need challengers here coming up because we have a pay-per-view in just a few days. So, all right. Ryan Nemeth calls the manner in which he was served at AEW and Tony Khan lawsuit, quote, a pathetic attempt to humiliate and intimidate me. He was on Substack. He went into detail about being countersued by Tony Khan and AEW in an attempt to compel arbitration in the suit Nemeth filed against Khan and AEW, elaborating in a social media post about being sued by a literal billionaire. He sued AEW, Khan, and Punk in February, alleging breach of contract and assault. AEW and Khan filed a motion to compel arbitration in the case. That sounds familiar. Have the case moved from California to Florida, citing an arbitration clause in Nemeth's contract. Nemeth says he was about to go on stage for his off-Broadway debut when he was approached by a process server, notified he was being sued. The night of our second and final performance, I was approached by a man in the theater lobby. He said he was there to serve me legal papers. Quote, "Hey, sorry, you're getting sued," end quote, and apologized for doing it at this inopportune time. He was giving me a legal notice that my former employer was suing me to move our legal dispute to arbitration, i.e. to keep everything private. Bullet points, Tony Khan, All Elite Wrestling, lawsuit has been filed against you. Nemeth said while he and his representation were respectful, gave Khan and AEW an opportunity to review his lawsuit before it was filed, he was not afforded the same courtesy, called the way he was served, an attempt to intimidate him. We'll talk more about this after the break. Observer Live. Just a quick note before this free video. If you click like and subscribe, I'd be very thankful. Okay, can everyone hear it?
Yeah.
There's a mystery bell at Granny's house. She can't hear it. Take off your headphones for a second.
I had them on wrong anyway.
Okay.
I can't get them on right. What?
Right. Take them off and listen.
You have in your elbow?
Is the fan on a computer?
Nothing.
All right. Well, this is going to be an exciting show.
Gonna have bells ringing through the whole thing, and it's every week. It's got to be me.
Do you have a neighbor that's an ice cream man
No,
practicing out there?
I got a neighbor that smokes marijuana.
I'm sure you do. I guess
Whatever that noise is, I mean, it's still going.
Yeah, it's not going to stop, dude.
Brian, do you want me to get off here and go see if open the door and see if there's anything out there?
You think something's out the front door?
Is he ringing the bell the entire time?
Yeah. No, Granny, you don't.
Let me in. Let me in.
It's fine. It's fine.
If it's death, don't open the door.
Thank you, Craig. This person thinks it's a stove timer.
Have you burned the roast?
No, I don't have a stove. You want me to just get off here?
No. We're going to barrel through it.
I'd love it.
You're not even doing anything. Granny, Nick says that you've got an old-fashioned analog alarm clock in Terry's bedroom.
I don't know. I got a new alarm clock, battery operated. Is that what she meant?
Well, whatever it is, it's going haywire right now.
Oh, it might be my alarm.
Do you think?
But it's way back in the bedroom.
Don't worry about it right now. But when the show's over, you might want to go...
That's what it is.
Okay.
Solve the mystery.
Is there a reason you didn't turn it off when it started ringing?
Well, I wasn't in there. I didn't.
Duh.
I took a nap. I took a nap and set the alarm. I thought I shut it off, but I probably didn't.
No.
You probably didn't.
That's life.
I would say with a good deal of certainty that you didn't turn it off.
Brian, that's life around here.
Yeah, I'm well aware. I do the show with Dave, too.
Say,
Hear all sorts of things in the background.
did I do that? You know,
Yeah, you did do that.
or I thought I did that, but I didn't.
In there.
I wake up and I see lights on, and I say, I didn't turn those lights on. What's going on?
Maybe the place is haunted.
Could be.
Okay.
It's my brain that's haunted.
Well, I hope not. Instead of suffering through the YouTube chat, click like and subscribe. Got a lot of good emails and texts here. I'll get into those in just a second. Favorite odd wrestler that you loved growing up. But anyway, Nemeth says that he didn't ambush them when he filed his suit. And he says, for those of you with knee-jerk reactions of, well, that's how it works, you idiot. You don't get to choose when they serve you. I will say this. My former employer, a billionaire, definitely had a choice. Could have very easily sent the notice to my attorney. He has his contact info. Could have had it sent to my attorney on Monday morning or any morning. Instead, Instead, the billionaire in question sent it to me in the middle of this deal. He said he could have done so in a respectful, professional manner. Instead, he and his lawyers chose to send someone to Astoria, Queens on a Saturday night to find me in the lobby of a small 150-seat theater in front of my family, friends, and theater goers, mere minutes before I stepped on stage in a pathetic attempt to humiliate and intimidate me. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but at this point, it's kind of hard to. Tried to give him the benefit of the doubt for the last 2 years, actually. At some point, the one man who single-handedly runs the entire company can just claim plausible deniability at every turn on every issue that seems remotely negative. I mean, do you run your company or not? So anyway, that's the story of the latest. They're trying to get it to arbitration because of an arbitration clause in his contract. This is exactly what's going on with Vince McMahon and Janelle Grant. It's the same thing. So we'll see what happens in both of these cases. Couple of favorite wrestlers growing up. This person here says, my favorite wrestler was an indie wrestler at the time, which has now made it semi-big. Cody Deaner. I remember Cody Deaner. That was this guy's favorite wrestler growing up. I like Cody Deaner. Person says, my obscure wrestler that was my favorite, by far, was Scotty 2 Hotty. That's James from New Jersey. Scotty was his guy. This person here says, well, he brings up Ric Flair because he says no one liked heels and Flair captivated me. Well, I think a lot of people, it's not even so much like, you know, you liked the heels and other people didn't, but like a really obscure wrestler. Ric Flair I wouldn't consider an obscure wrestler in any way whatsoever. But that I'll take that. This person says, when I was a kid, my favorite wrestler was Doink the Clown. Is this Filthy Tom? I loved him and I couldn't even explain why. I'm afraid of clowns, but I guess he was the perfect amount of creepy and fun that I just loved him. The first time I ever performed in front of people was my classmates watching me hum the Doink theme song. I'm sure a life-changing experience for this fella. And yes, as people are noting in the chat, there were multiple Doinks, and the first Doink was by far the best Doink, to the point where it was actually a great gimmick. Once Doink kind of started turning babyface, and then we got a new Doink, and it was just it was never the same. But the original evil heel Doink the Clown was actually quite awesome, no matter what anybody tries to tell you. As an angry young man, I cheered for Rene Dupree to beat John Cena for the U.S. title back in 2004. I was heartbroken when he lost. Man. Here's Steven in Atlanta. A blast from the past for Southern fans in the late 80s. Grizzly Boone. I actually don't know anything about Grizzly Boone. I don't think I've ever seen him, actually. Grizzly Boone. Where did he work? Give me some more details about Grizzly Boone, Steven. Don the Don says, my favorite obscure wrestler for me would be Mad Dog Joe DiCurso, who decapitated his opponent and then became The Mask. Or did he? I think I got to open up the phone lines today so people can tell me more about some of these obscure characters here. This person here says, when I first started watching wrestling, I immediately chose Mr. X as my favorite WWF star. He was mysterious, cool, kind of like Spider-Man. I was always convinced he would win if I just cheered for him hard enough. Boy, did I not have a clue. This person here says, I was a face paint and monster kid. Sting, Great Muta. The Missing Link, probably my obscure favorite. And I also love George the Animal Steel. Guys, remember, it's probably 2011, 2012. It was a long, long time ago. But when we used to do Sunday Observer Live, on when I used to host it for 2 hours on Byline, and we'd open up the phone lines there, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but one day, I don't know if it was Dom or who it was, but the producer jumped on and said, hey, we got someone on the line that says they're the Animal George Steele. I said, what? And sure enough, George the Animal Steel called into Wrestling Observer Live. I guess he had a bone to pick with something I said. And then we left him on the show for a long time afterwards, and he was a great guest, super nice guy. Old George the Animal Steel. Global Wrestling on ESPN, this person says, got me watching wrestling beyond the WWF. There weren't a lot of kids my age who rooted for Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, or who popped when Maniac Mike Davis did a bungee jump and came back with a moonrock. But I dug it. What? Guys need to give me more details. I need to know more about some of this. All right, if you want to text me, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. Nearly 7 years after the first show took place, WWE reportedly bringing back its all-women's Evolution, PLE. WrestleVotes confirmed today. WWE planning for Evolution to return this summer. Corey Hayes of PW Nexus first reported the news. Tentatively scheduled for July 5th at the Mohegan Sun Arena, Uncasville, Connecticut. Dave Meltzer also confirmed WWE had that venue booked, with Evolution being the tentative plan. First one was held Long Island, New York, October 2018. The matches included Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella and Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. I got to say something here. I want to make it abundantly clear. I don't know, and I am not reporting as a fact that Ronda Rousey would do this show, but I can tell you that Ronda Rousey has been training. So we'll see where she ends up going. But if I had to venture a guess, it would be the Evolution PLE. And Bella's probably there as well. I think that it would be a big success because WWE, whatever you want to say about them, they have done an exceptional job pushing their women's division as equal to the men's division. Especially if you watched the NXT show. NXT, they were down a little bit in 18-49, but total viewers, they did a big number this week. Advertising Stephanie defending the title twice on one show, in the opener and the main event. They did very, very well. And, it's certainly not every time, but, a fair number of times the highest rated segment on a show, provided Roman Reigns isn't there, or John Cena, but the highest rated segment on the show, and that's counting Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, they're women's segments. And it's what I've talked about in terms of AEW as well. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Tony Khan has always kind of felt that, with some exceptions, obviously he thinks Tony's a big star, and he positioned them in the main event this week. But he also put a commercial break at 9:59, so their segment died. But the point is, with the exception of Tony, I mean, he's always kind of booked the women's division as an afterthought. And so the AEW fans see the women's division largely as an afterthought. And with WWE, I mean, they have no problem booking women's segments as the main event segments on the shows. They push Rhea Ripley as at the same level as any of the other male stars. I mean, they tell you that this women's division is important, and these women are stars, and these matches are important. And the fans see them as important now. And if you book a big women's match, they will watch it in large numbers. So anyway, I think it'll be a big success when they do it again. Looking like Saturday, July 5th for the second Evolution PLE. Hey, you guys ever want to go to work for WWE? I know some of you do. Ever want to be a ring announcer? Well, WWE's got a new ring announcer. So, for a while they were using Lillian Garcia again. But Lillian Garcia was always planned to be a short-term deal while they looked for a new ring announcer. This was after Alicia Taylor got moved over to the Raw side. And so Lillian's gone, and they have hired a fella, Mark Schunock, recently departed Top Rank Boxing. And what's that guy's name that does the ring announcing in NXT with the giant hair? He's got hair like this high in the air. Mike Rome, maybe? But anyway, this new guy, you'll never guess. He looks exactly like Mike Rome. He's a normal-looking bloke, and his hair is like this high. So basically, if you have hair this high, WWE is looking for you. Back in a moment, Observer Live. People figured out the phone lines were open, so we already got 3 callers on the line. So whatever you want to talk about today, give us a call. The phone number, 618-762-3275. That is 618-762-3275. You can also use the international web browser line, callinstudio.com/show/WOL. That is callinstudio.com/show/WOL. Just bookmark it. You can use it whenever you want. But let's see what everyone's got on their mind here today. You're on the air. Who is this? And where are you calling from?
Hey, y'all. It's Brandon here from Portsmouth. I was thinking about that question about favorite obscure wrestler.
Yes.
And what came to mind was actually a tag team of Hardcore Holly and Crash Holly, specifically when they were doing that gimmick of being super heavyweights and Crash would walk around with a scale and it was saying that he's like over 400 pounds. And I remember they were like on commentary for some match, and Kane was wrestling, and someone like Kane was wrestling, and JR is like, "Well, what do you think about wrestling someone like Kane?" And Hardcore is like, "Well, I don't know, he's not really a super heavyweight. We really want to just wrestle super heavyweights." And just ridiculous stuff like that. It was corny, it was stupid, but for whatever reason, it got my attention, and I loved it for the time they were doing that.
Well, Brandon, I want to thank you very much for the call. Yes, that was I would consider that one an obscure one because we're talking the wrestling boom of the 90s, and you had big stars and Stone Cold and Bret Hart and The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and The Rock and all these guys, and if your favorite was Bob and Crash Holly, I will take that as an obscure favorite wrestler. Let's go to the phones. You are on the air. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Don the Don Rosberg.
Don, tell me about
Brad
this gimmick.
Ford.
Tell me about it.
So, you can actually find it on the YouTubes, and it's a Grunt the Wrestling movie. But had Mad Dog Joe DiCurso, and it's like 79 or something like that, had a match, and his opponent jumped and he kind of got his head caught in the ring, and then Mad Dog, he jumped, and the guy's head came clear off, flew into the audience, and then he supposedly killed himself, and then he became the Mask, or did he? It was kind of, but yeah, it's on the YouTube. It's Grunt the Wrestling movie.
So this is okay. All right.
Really
So
stuff.
yes, Grunt the Wrestling movie. I got it.
Dick Murdoch's in it.
Yes.
Yeah, Dick Murdoch's in it. Exotic Adrian Street, he's in it. And, that's great stuff. It's a documentary. It says documentary right there.
Oh, does it?
The thing right there.
Okay.
So it's real. It's real.
Well, yes, I'm well aware of Grunt of the Wrestling movie. I want to thank you very much for the call. You didn't mention that, however, in your text message. You made it sound like some local indie in your area. Some guy's head got chopped off, and then he came back and had a new gimmick. Now I got it. Grunt the Wrestling movie. A classic, right? Okay. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. This is Michael from Rochester. Thank you for taking my call. And my most obscure wrestler is actually somebody that I know personally. He was known as the Rochester Roadblock. And he wrestled in
Rochester
WCW
Roadblock?
as the Roadblock.
You know this guy? Wow.
And I want to tell you how I knew him. My parents were really good friends with a guy named Charles Saputo. And Charles Saputo was in a biker gang. And he was in a biker gang with a guy named Joseph DeQuisto, which is the Rochester Roadblock. And the first wrestling show I ever went to was at the Rochester War Memorial when I was 9 years old. And the main event was Hulk Hogan against the one-man gang for the World Wrestling Federation title. And Joseph DeQuisto wanted to be a wrestler. So that year, he ended up training to become a professional wrestler. So that night, he told Charles Saputo and my parents that he's going to jump the railing and go after Hulk Hogan. And you could actually ask your boy Dave Meltzer. He knows about this.
Oh, yes.
What ended up happening was he jumped the railing, and you know how Edge used to slide into the ring like really nice and gracefully before you come to the ring?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this guy was 400 pounds, legit. So when he slid into the ring, he wasn't so graceful, and the one-man gang gave him a shoot 747 splash. And then security took him away. And then about 6 months later, he trained to become a professional wrestler. And it was cool to see him on WCW shows. He actually got racked by Lex Luger, I think on an episode of Nitro.
I remember this. It was freaking awesome. The place went nuts for that.
He wrestled the Big Show, and he wrestled Benoit and a few other guys during that era.
Yes.
So that was my favorite obscure wrestler.
I will accept that one. That was I seem to remember Dave telling that story. And that guy's still alive. Rochester Roadblock. He's not even that old. He's like 62 right now. He's one of those guys like, when I was watching during the heyday of the Monday Night Wars, I was in my early 20s. And, so it seemed like everybody was much older than me. But really, they weren't that much older. Like, I'm catching up to some of these guys now. But, yes, the Rochester Roadblock. I remember that Luger rack. That place went nuts when he racked that roadblock. It was one of those... that was one of those Luger things where it's like, this guy is so over, and they drop the ball every single time when they give Luger a push. How about that? Well, now the world knows he was in a gang. I don't know if that was public knowledge. All right, let's go to the phones. You are on the air. Who is this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah. Oh, hey, it's me, Johnny California. How are you doing, Brian? I'm actually calling because, I really love Max Caster. I thought he wasn't a great wrestler, but he was, very entertaining. And without him rapping, I don't really know if I want him on my TV shows every week if he's not going to rap. How do you feel about that?
So you preferred him when he was part of like a good tag team?
No, I mean, I'll be honest with him. When he first showed up it was like a Royal Rumble Battle Royale they had on a pay-per-view or something. He had a mustache. He was a jobber. And the only thing I got him over was he started rapping. And, it was more entertaining than most of his matches. Like his gimmick with Daddy Ass and, Bowens was great. I mean, they sold merch. They were definitely, my casual friends, were entertained by it. It was a good segment. And, I'm entertained by him being a jobber. It's an entertaining, segment. But when he would rap, it would be like the highlight of every pay-per-view. The highlight of every single episode was, edgy thing or what crazy thing that you wouldn't expect, and he was a good rapper as well.
Well, I agree with everything that you said. I want to thank you very much for the call. And I should mention this. We're not going to really have time to talk about Dynamite today, but you can go listen to the Bryan and Vinny show from last night. Reviewed the entire thing. But Max Caster was on the show, okay? And I was entertained by the segment that he was in because it opens up with Samoa Joe walking up to old Hook. And he goes, man, why'd you take so long to choke out old Caster last week? And Hook goes, come on, man. What a geek. It's like fun. It's fun to choke him out. I took my time. Joe goes, all right. So they keep walking, and there's Max Caster, and he's holding court with Top Flight, AR Fox. And Joe looks at this guy, and he walks up behind him and chokes him out. And then after he's choked out, he fixes his shirt, turns to Hook, and he goes, you're right. That was a good time. I laughed, okay? Now, what I did not mention on Observer Radio on Wednesday, and people got mad about it. They're like, I can't believe Brian didn't mention it. Apparently, when Max was holding court, and people tell me that there was like a light chant for Max Caster. What is this thing he wants people to chant? Max, the best wrestler in whatever it is. So they go, you could barely hear it. There were like some people doing the chant in the background. And they're telling me this Brian, you should have heard this. He's getting over. There was a light chant of his goofy, and I just thought, first off, I didn't hear it. Couldn't have been that loud. Second, let's say that's true. Let's say that Max Caster was doing a backstage segment, and a pocket of fans started chanting, Max Caster, the best wrestler in the world, or whatever, okay? Who cares? How about you go on Max, not Caster, but the actual streaming service, and you go back 2-3 years when the Acclaimed were one of the hottest acts in the company, and when they came out, they were massively over. And they would hit the music, and the place would go wild. And then Max would do his and people would be screaming because they thought his rap was so awesome. And then Bowens would do his catchphrase. They'd all scream it with him. And then Mr. Ass would do his thing, and they'd all go wild. They were over, and they were way more over that Max Caster is now getting a pocket of fans lightly chanting his new catchphrase. Do you guys understand? It's have you guys forgotten how over the Acclaimed were? You're acting like this Max Caster was some job guy from the indie scene who just showed up and was doing jobs and then slowly started to organically get over. That's not what's happening here. He's not the Outrunners, who, by the way, organically got way more over than Max Caster is right now. They literally took a guy who was super over in part of a super over act, chopped his legs off, took two of the guys off TV for months, put this guy back as a jobber, and now he's starting to get over. How is this a positive? How? And furthermore, how is this getting anyone excited for Anthony Bowens versus Max Caster? Is anyone sitting there going, gee, I hope Bowens comes back and shuts this guy up? Bro, that happens every week with everybody. Every week on the show, someone shuts the guy up and they beat him. We're supposed to be super excited to see Bowens do it? So I don't get it. I think they took an overact and made an act that's not over at all. And if they're lucky, might get over a little bit. How is this a positive? So anyway, yes, I agree with the previous caller. Let's do another one. You're on the air. Who is this? Let's see here. Who is this and where are you calling from?
This is Ray from Austin.
Yes, Ray.
I just found out, just like as the show was on the air, that if you have Spectrum for like your cable or internet or something, you will get Peacock for free starting today.
Wow, really? Everyone with Spectrum gets free Peacock starting today?
Yes, I had been waiting for a while because I didn't know. They said it would be the first half of the year, last October, but apparently it's today.
All right. See what I can find out here. All right. Actually, in fact, I got the news right here. So thank you very much for the call. I will read this to everybody. So if you don't have Peacock, but you have Spectrum, let's see. All right. It says here, some Spectrum customers now have free access. Oh, my God. That didn't work. Let's try this one. Deseret Sun. Charter Spectrum TV Select video customers gain access to the Peacock streaming app this weekend at no cost. The ad-supported Peacock Premium, usually priced at $7.99, offers 80,000 hours of content. Spectrum TV Select customers can activate Peacock Premium as part of their plan. It's part of a multi-year distribution agreement between Charter and NBC Universal that was reached in October 2024. Also includes linear channels like NBC, Bravo, USA Network, CNBC, and MSNBC. So there you go. If you have Spectrum TV Select, you now get Peacock Premium free. So go at it. Back in a moment. Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here. Derpy Dodo on the chat says, I'd never heard of that Grunt movie. Just watched the first bit of it. And the first thing that happens after a man gets decapitated is a reporter asks, quote, does the man who lost his head have to drop his title? Good to know their priorities were in the right place, he says. Well, yeah. Did he? All right, we're out of time here today, but we got a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. SmackDown and Collision. There is a Raw in London on Monday with Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley with Bianca Belair as a special guest referee. Gunther versus Jimmy Uso. Logan Paul calls out AJ Styles. And John Cena and Cody Rhodes will go face-to-face. So that's coming up Monday. And the new Observer is out on the front page right now. I'll be back this weekend with a Bryan and Vinny show talking SmackDown and Collision, as well as a Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave. Dave and Garrett are up tonight. So, man, a lot of stuff for subscribers. You can get full site access, everything, at f4wonline.com/new. That is f4wonline.com/new. Or you can do the $9.99 podcast-only options on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. f4wonline.com/Apple, f4wonline.com/Spotify, f4wonline.com/YouTube. So go check those out. Sign up today. WrestleMania's coming. We got a lot of coverage, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's it for today. I want to thank Mike, as always, callers and listeners, especially all you callers here today. Everyone who sent emails. We'll talk to you next time. Wrestling Observer Live.